99% people don't understand how detectives really think, but after today, your mind will never see people the same way again. These are the 10 dark detective secrets used to read lies, expose fear, and silently understand when someone is secretly watching, or even investigating you.
Inside criminal minds. Most people think criminals look dangerous. They imagine angry faces, cold eyes, and violent behavior. But detectives know the truth is far darker. The most dangerous criminals often look completely normal. They smile naturally. They speak politely. They act calm, intelligent, and friendly. Some even live ordinary lives for years without anyone suspecting them. This is why detectives never trust appearances. They trust psychology. Because human behavior always reveals hidden emotions. When a person lies, the brain experiences pressure. That pressure creates tiny reactions inside the body. A nervous blink, dry lips, faster breathing, a shaking hand, or sudden silence during simple questions. Normal people ignore these details. Detectives are trained to notice every change. Inside every criminal mind there is one powerful weakness: fear. Fear of losing control, fear of exposure, fear of making mistakes, and fear of the truth escaping. This is why professional detectives use silence during interrogation. Silence creates psychological pressure. The room becomes uncomfortable. The suspect's brain starts overthinking. Heart rate increases, stress grows stronger, and under pressure, the human mind begins to crack. Some criminals prepare fake stories before questioning. They memorize answers. They practice fake emotions. They rehearse eye contact and body language. But no human can perfectly control stress forever. Sooner or later, mistakes appear. A sudden change in tone, too many unnecessary details, an aggressive reaction, or answers that quietly contradict previous statements. And detectives wait carefully for these moments, because real investigation is not only about fingerprints or evidence. It is about understanding darkness hidden inside the human mind. Psychologists say some criminals feel little guilt. These people manipulate emotions, fake kindness, and hide behind perfect masks. But even the strongest mask eventually breaks under pressure. That is why great detectives remain emotionally calm. While criminals fight fear internally, detectives study every movement silently. Every pause becomes suspicious. Every emotion becomes evidence. Every reaction becomes a clue. Because in the end, the human mind always leaves fingerprints behind. Mind of a killer. Not every killer looks like a monster. In fact, many of them look completely ordinary. They live normal lives. They smile in public. They talk politely. And sometimes, they are the last people anyone would ever suspect. But inside their minds, something is different. A killer's psychology is not always about anger. Sometimes it is about control. Sometimes it is about emotionlessness. And sometimes it is about a quiet thought that grows too far inside the mind. Detectives know this reality very well. That is why they never focus only on appearance. They focus on patterns. Every human follows patterns. Sleep patterns, speaking patterns, emotional patterns, behavior patterns. But when someone commits a serious crime, those patterns often shift. Not suddenly, but subtly. A person may become unusually calm after an incident, or overly nervous in situations where there is no reason to be nervous. These small changes can become signals for investigators. The human brain is not designed to lie perfectly. Under stress, it leaks information through behavior. A killer may try to control words, but controlling body language is much harder. Eyes move differently. Hands behave differently. Breathing changes without permission. Detectives observe all of this silently. They also study motivation, because every crime has a reason behind it, even if that reason is not logical. Some crimes come from anger, some from fear, some from obsession, and some from a desire for power or control. Understanding motivation is key to understanding the mind behind the act. But the most dangerous type of criminal is not the emotional one. It is the calculated one, the one who thinks ahead, plans everything, and believes they can never be caught. Yet history shows something different. No mind is perfect under pressure. At some point, stress appears. At some point, mistakes happen. And at some point, truth begins to surface. That is why detectives stay patient. They wait, they observe, and they let the human mind reveal what it is trying to hide. Because in the end, every killer leaves something behind. Not just evidence, but a trace of their mind. The lie detector. A lie does not begin with words. It begins inside the human mind. Before a liar even speaks, the brain starts fighting itself. One part tries to hide the truth, while the other struggles to stay believable. That internal pressure creates stress, and stress always leaves signals behind. This is why detectives study psychology more than conversation. A person telling the truth usually speaks naturally. Their behavior stays consistent, but a liar must control every detail carefully. Voice, timing, emotions, facial expressions, and body language. And controlling all of that at once is extremely difficult. The first thing detectives observe is reaction speed. Honest answers often come naturally. Liars usually need extra time because the brain is building a false response. Then comes body language. Some liars avoid eye contact completely. Others force eye contact too much because they believe it makes them look innocent. Both reactions can become suspicious. Breathing also changes under pressure. Heart rate increases. Hands move differently. Small facial muscles tighten for a second before returning to normal. These reactions are called micro-signals. Most people never notice them. Detectives are trained to notice everything. Another important trick is repetition. Investigators ask the same question in different ways at different times. A truthful memory stays mostly consistent. A fabricated story slowly changes, and every change creates a crack in the lie. But the strongest weapon in interrogation is not anger. It is silence. Silence creates psychological pressure. The longer the silence lasts, the more uncomfortable the suspect becomes. Eventually, many people start talking just to escape the tension, and in those extra words, hidden truth often appears. That is the terrifying reality about deception. The human brain can create lies, but it cannot hide stress forever. Sooner or later, behavior exposes what words try to protect. Because every lie leaves fingerprints inside the mind. Psychology of lies. Lying is not just about words. It is about the mind under pressure. Most people think a lie is easy to hide, but the human brain does not fully cooperate with deception. When someone lies, their mind works harder than usual. It creates stress, and that stress always shows small signals in behavior. A person telling the truth stays natural. Their voice is stable. Their breathing is normal. And their answers come without effort. But a liar must build a story inside their head while speaking at the same time. This creates mental load. That's where mistakes begin. Detectives understand this very well. They don't rush. They observe. They study how a person behaves before, during, and after questions. Even a simple pause can reveal something important. A liar often takes extra time before answering simple questions, not because they are thinking, but because they are constructing a lie. Body language also changes. Hands may move more than usual. Eye contact becomes inconsistent. Some people look away too often, while others force too much eye contact to appear honest. Both extremes are suspicious. The human brain also reacts emotionally under pressure. When a liar feels they might be caught, their nervous system activates. Heart rate increases, speech becomes uneven, and tone may change without notice. Detectives call this behavioral leakage. It means truth leaks through small actions even when words are controlled. Another important technique detectives use is comparison. They observe how a person behaves during normal conversation, then compare it with how they behave during critical questions. Any sudden shift becomes a clue. But the most powerful weapon in interrogation is silence. Silence creates discomfort. It forces the suspect to fill the gap, and in that pressure, people often say more than they planned. The truth is simple. Lies are heavy to carry. The human mind was not designed to hold false stories under stress. That is why, in the end, truth always finds a way to escape, even from the strongest liar. Secrets detectives know. Detectives understand something most people never realize. Human beings reveal the truth long before they speak it. Every emotion changes behavior. Fear changes breathing. Stress changes movement. And guilt changes the way a person reacts under pressure. This is why experienced detectives observe more than they talk. A suspect may sound confident, but confidence can be fake. The body, however, reacts naturally. Tiny details begin to appear without permission. A shaking hand, dry lips, a forced smile, sudden silence after simple questions. To normal people, these signs seem meaningless. To detectives, they are psychological clues. One of the biggest secrets detectives know is that guilty people often over-explain. Instead of giving direct answers, they add unnecessary details to sound believable. But but too much detail can create suspicion. Another powerful technique is unexpected questioning. Detectives suddenly ask questions in a different order to break mental preparation. A person telling the truth remembers reality naturally. A liar must remember the fake story they created. And fake stories collapse under pressure. Detectives also understand emotional timing. Sometimes they remain silent for several seconds after a suspect answers. That silence creates discomfort, and uncomfortable people often continue talking to fill the pressure. In many cases, the extra words become more important than the original answer. But detective psychology is not only about criminals. It is about understanding human nature itself. People hide fear. People hide anger. People hide secrets. Yet the human mind always leaves traces behind. That is why great detectives never trust words alone. They study patterns, reactions, and emotional shifts. Because behavior tells stories that language cannot hide. And in the end, the truth usually appears the same way. Quietly. Slowly. And through the small mistakes people never notice themselves. Inside Detective Secrets. Detectives see the world differently from ordinary people. While normal people listen to words, detectives study behavior. They watch eye movement, breathing, silence, and emotional reactions. Because human behavior often reveals truth faster than conversation. Every investigation begins with observation. A detective enters a room and immediately notices details most people ignore. A nervous hand movement, forced confidence, sudden silence during simple questions. Tiny reactions that seem meaningless to others can become critical clues. This is because the human brain reacts automatically under pressure. When a person hides something important, the mind experiences stress, and stress changes behavior in ways that are difficult to control completely. Some suspects avoid eye contact, others force too much eye contact. Some speak too quickly, others pause too long before answering. Detectives compare all these reactions carefully. One of the most powerful detective techniques is psychological pressure through silence. After asking an important question, investigators sometimes remain completely quiet. That silence creates tension, and tension makes people uncomfortable. The longer the silence continues, the harder it becomes for suspects to control emotions, and emotional pressure creates mistakes. Another secret detectives know is that guilty people often focus more on appearing innocent than simply telling the truth. They over-explain details, repeat themselves, or become defensive without reason. These reactions slowly reveal hidden fear, but experienced detectives never trust one sign alone. Real investigation is about patterns. Multiple behavioral changes together create suspicion. This is why detective work is deeply connected to psychology, because every criminal leaves behind more than evidence. They leave emotional fingerprints hidden inside their behavior. And in the end, detectives do not solve cases only by finding clues. They solve them by understanding the human mind. Criminal mind secrets. Every criminal hides two identities. The first identity is the face shown to the world, calm, normal, and believable. The second identity is the hidden mind filled with fear, secrets, and dangerous thoughts. Detectives understand this better than anyone else. That is why investigations are not only about evidence, they are about psychology. A detective studies behavior the same way scientists study experiments. Every movement matters. Every reaction tells a story. When a suspect enters an interrogation room, detectives immediately begin observing small details. How fast they sit down, how they answer greetings, how their breathing changes during certain questions. Because the human brain reacts automatically under stress. A guilty mind works differently from an innocent one. Innocent people usually focus on proving truth. Guilty people focus on avoiding mistakes. And that difference changes behavior. Some criminals become overly confident. Some become defensive. Some try too hard to appear calm. But fake calmness rarely lasts forever. Psychologists say the human mind becomes unstable when fear and deception combine together. The brain must constantly protect the lie while also controlling emotions. This creates pressure, and pressure always leaves signals behind. One of the strongest detective techniques is observation without interruption. Detectives sometimes allow suspects to speak freely for long periods. The longer someone talks, the harder it becomes to maintain a perfect lie. Soon contradictions begin appearing naturally. A changed detail, a forgotten timeline, a different emotional reaction. These tiny mistakes slowly expose hidden truth. But the darkest reality is this: some criminals feel almost no guilt at all. They manipulate emotions easily. They fake kindness naturally, and they hide dangerous intentions behind ordinary personalities. That is why detectives never trust appearances alone, because sometimes the most dangerous mind in the room is also the calmest one. And in the end, every criminal leaves something behind. Not only evidence, but psychological fingerprints hidden inside their behavior. Detective fear tactics. Every detective knows one terrifying truth. Fear changes human behavior faster than anything else. A criminal may hide evidence, they may rehearse lies, they may control facial expressions, but controlling fear is almost impossible. This is why detectives use psychological pressure during investigations. Not violence, not shouting, pressure. The interrogation room itself is designed to create discomfort. Silence feels heavier, time feels slower, every question feels more dangerous, and slowly, the suspect's mind begins fighting itself. A guilty person constantly worries about making mistakes. They overthink every answer. They analyze every reaction from the detective. And this mental pressure creates behavioral changes. Breathing becomes uneven. Hands move nervously. Tone changes unexpectedly. Simple questions suddenly feel difficult. Detectives watch all of this carefully. One powerful technique investigators use is controlled silence. After a suspect answers, detectives sometimes remain completely quiet. That silence creates tension, and tension makes people uncomfortable. Most humans hate silence under pressure, so they continue talking. And the more they talk, the higher the chance of contradiction. Another tactic is surprise questioning. Detectives suddenly ask about details in a different order. A truthful memory usually stays stable. A fabricated story slowly breaks apart. This is where fear becomes dangerous for criminals, because fear weakens focus. Fear damages control. Fear creates mistakes. Even highly intelligent criminals eventually show signs of stress when psychological pressure increases long enough. That is why great detectives remain calm during interrogation. While suspects fight fear internally, detectives simply observe reactions. Every hesitation becomes important. Every emotional shift becomes evidence. Every small mistake becomes another step toward truth. Because in the end, fear exposes what criminals desperately try to hide inside their minds. Dark detective mind. Inside every investigation, there is a moment where logic ends and human psychology begins. Detectives don't just look for clues on the ground. They look for clues inside people. Because every human mind hides something. Even the most innocent person has thoughts they never speak about. And in criminals, those hidden thoughts become dangerous secrets. A detective's real power is observation. Not speed, not strength, observation. They watch how people react under pressure. How their face changes when a question becomes uncomfortable. How their voice shifts when truth gets closer. Most criminals don't get caught because of evidence alone. They get caught because their behavior changes at the wrong moment. A normal person stays consistent, but a guilty mind becomes unpredictable. Sometimes they become too quiet. Sometimes they talk too much. Sometimes they try too hard to act normal. And that trying is exactly what exposes them. Psychology says the human brain struggles under stress. When a person hides something important, their mind divides attention between reality and lies. That creates internal conflict. And conflict always shows signals. Detectives are trained to read these signals without saying a word. A small hesitation, a change in tone, or a delayed response can become more valuable than physical evidence. But the most powerful technique in detective psychology is patience. They don't rush suspects. They let silence grow. Because silence creates pressure, and pressure breaks control. Under enough pressure, even the smartest criminal starts revealing pieces of truth without realizing it. Not because they want to confess, but because the human mind cannot stay perfectly hidden forever. In the end, detective work is not about catching people. It is about understanding the invisible battle between truth and deception inside the human mind. Hidden human psychology. Every human mind hides a side that the world never sees. People smile while hiding pain. They stay silent while hiding anger. And sometimes, they pretend to be calm while their thoughts are completely out of control. This is the dark reality detectives understand better than anyone else. Human behavior is never random. Every action, every reaction, and every emotion comes from something deeper inside the mind. That is why detectives study psychology carefully. A person may say they are relaxed, but their body can reveal the opposite. Fast breathing, tense muscles, restless hands, or sudden eye movement often expose hidden stress. The human brain constantly sends signals, even when someone tries to hide them. One of the most dangerous psychological abilities is manipulation. Some people learn how to control emotions, gain trust, and influence others without being noticed. They observe weaknesses, study reactions, and slowly take psychological control over conversations. What makes manipulators dangerous is how normal they appear. They rarely look aggressive. They rarely lose control. And they often sound intelligent and confident. But behind that calm behavior, there is usually calculation. Detectives are trained to recognize these patterns. They watch how people react when control disappears unexpectedly. Because when pressure suddenly appears, fake personalities begin to crack. This is why interrogation rooms are designed to create discomfort. Silence, isolation, and direct questioning increase mental pressure over time. And under pressure, the real personality slowly surfaces. Some people become defensive, some become emotional, some become aggressive, and some become completely silent. Every reaction reveals something important about the mind. The terrifying truth is that most psychological battles happen invisibly. No shouting, no violence, just silent control, hidden fear, and manipulation beneath ordinary conversations. That is why detectives never trust appearances alone, because sometimes the darkest minds hide behind the calmest faces.